This is Explain Me More, and today we uncover one of the defining turning points in global history. A moment when humanity didn't just divide by borders or languages, but by wealth. A moment that created two worlds, one destined for prosperity and one locked into struggle. This is the day the world split into rich and poor. The divide didn't happen in a single day, but it began with a clear turning point, the Industrial Revolution. While most of the world lived in farming societies, a small group of nations discovered machines that could produce faster than any human hand. Coal, steel, steam engines. These were the tools that transformed cities into powerhouses. But the real shift came from something bigger: productivity. Countries that adopted machines grew wealth exponentially. Countries that did not were left behind almost instantly. But machines alone didn't make nations rich. Empires played a massive role. Industrial nations needed resources: cotton, rubber, metals, oil. And these resources came from lands that had none of the new technology to defend themselves economically. This created the empire loop. Rich countries used technology to take resources. Those resources built more technology. That technology created more power. And the gap became wider. Entire regions in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East were locked into providing cheap raw materials instead of developing industries of their own. The modern wealth gap was no longer an accident. It was engineered. In the 20th century, the divide grew again, not through conquest, but through loans. After the World Wars, powerful nations and global institutions offered loans to developing countries, but with conditions: high interest, structural requirements, and dependency on foreign markets. Some nations prospered, but many fell into a cycle where more money was paid in interest than was ever invested in growth. Debt became the new empire, one that didn't require armies, only numbers. Then came the digital age: computers, telecommunications, and later the internet. Nations that already had capital invested immediately. Nations that did not fell another step behind. In just a few decades, technology replaced natural resources as the main source of wealth. But only a handful of countries controlled this new digital gold. Today, the richest nations are not the ones with the most land or the largest armies, but the ones that control data, innovation, and high-tech infrastructure. So why does the world remain divided? Because every stage of global development, from industrialization to empire, to international finance, to technology, rewarded nations that entered early and punished nations that entered late. But there is another side to the story. Some countries did break the cycle. South Korea, Singapore, Japan. They invested heavily in education, technology, and long-term planning and rose from poverty to prosperity within one generation. The gap is not destiny, but history still weighs heavily. The world didn't split into rich and poor by accident. It happened through centuries of choices, power, and opportunity. And the divide we live with today is the result of a story still being written.